Welcome back, one and all, to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. This is Wednesday, May 21st on this recording. Chelsea has a massive, massive match coming up here this weekend against Forest. Win, and they are in the Champions League. But first, Jim, I haven't talked to you, I guess, on a call for the Always Bayern Chelsea show since Bayern Munich officially became Bundesliga champions. So, first of all, how are you? Second of all, maybe give a few thoughts about the Bavarian champions.
Yeah, I'm terrific. First of all, feeling confident about the weekend and in good spirits for all the Bayern fans out there as well, because it was a great end of the year for Bayern Munich. Sure, they didn't do as well as they wanted to in the Champions League, but I think we all knew that they'd have a great chance of winning the league, and win the league they did. For Vincent Kompany, it's certainly a great achievement in his first season as the top man of the club. Bayern get back to the top of the summit, if you will, of the Bundesliga, which is a place that they belong, quite frankly. And I think fans expect to be there every year, but it's probably still pretty sweet to get there. So it's an achievement as well, I'll say, just because they dealt with, some injuries and some tumultuous times. So credit to them for staying strong, and hopefully they can ride the momentum of a first year trophy to even greater heights in year two.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything you said there. So good little intro right there. I will mention this is a video episode, so check it out on YouTube. Subscribe to the Always Bayern Chelsea YouTube channel because we're gonna have obviously a lot of coverage for this super exciting end of the year for Chelsea with the Forest match to make or not make the UCL next year, and then also the Conference League final. But we also have the Club World Cup coming up. And before we even get ahead of ourselves with all of that, I will also be dropping some just end of the year content for Bayern Munich, maybe some player rankings, tier rankings, just further thoughts. I'm hoping to have maybe a guest or two on the show and just talk about kind of Bayern season as a whole. So there is a lot of stuff coming there, a lot of ideas percolating, and let's just say motion in the ocean maybe coming up soon here for Bayern Munich. But like I said, I agree with what you said. I think in my opinion, the expectation for me was to win the Bundesliga again. Obviously maybe got a little unlucky in the Champions League with some injuries and whatnot, but we still fought with Inter to the death, even though we were super banged up. Definitely unlucky in the Pokal with that red card from Neuer and then losing to Leverkusen by 1 goal while really being the better team, down 10 men. So, some things maybe out of Kompany's control there, but he really did a good job at steadying the ship after a crazy season last season, a trophyless season last season. He did a great job at steadying the ship and just being really the most consistent and the best team in Germany throughout the Bundesliga season.
Definitely agree in terms of consistency. I think that was the key. We saw Leverkusen just had a massive drop off, in my opinion. Might not look that way in the standings at the end of the year, but I think most people would agree compared to the incredible year they had last year, it was a drop off. They were never going to be as good, and Bayern was able to take back the glory that was meant to be theirs. So, again, credit to Company, credit to Harry Kane for finally getting the trophy. And really, in my eyes, credit to a couple other key players, Michael Olise, Joshua Kimmich, Musiala when healthy, Neuer when healthy. These are the stars of the Bayern team. Upamecano I'd throw in there as well. Even Davies when healthy, I got to give a shout out to. But really, I do want to note that Michael Olise was outstanding on the season for the most part, which was kind of my call at the beginning of the year. So credit to me for that.
Yeah, you did predict that one, and rightfully so. You deserve the praise for that because, yeah, there were some doubters. I mean, Olise coming over from Crystal Palace for I think around 50 million euros was that transfer fee. Arguably the signing of the season across Europe. In my opinion, he should be in that conversation because of how well he played. I'm actually struggling to award an MVP of Bayern Munich this year. I think in my mind, it's between Kane, Kimmich, and Olise. Maybe we'll go through all that in a different episode. So, hey, stay tuned for that. But yeah, like you said, I think all those guys you mentioned were key players. I think Upamecano stepped up in a big way this year. Same with Davies. Obviously, both those guys hurt at the end of the year, but those two guys, really Davies in particular, a complete 180 from where he was last year, and then Upamecano just stepping up and not making mistakes like he did last year. So huge from those two. Yeah, Musiala had a great year as well. Bummer that he got injured. I thought Neuer was solid, like you said, but um, yeah, I think the main thing I look for in a team is growth. Are they in a better place this year than they were last year? And I think that you can say Bayern Munich is. I think you can say that Bayern Munich has the building blocks now for this transitional phase, right? Like Muller's retiring, Neuer's probably a year out from retiring. And then you have these like middle guys, middle of their careers, like Kimmich, who will kind of inherit the captaincy. And I guess like Upamecano maybe in that group too. And then you're handing it over to this transition of this next generation of players like Musiala, like Davies, potentially Florian Wirtz if he comes over. So I think Bayern's in a good place where they're better than they were at this time last season. And you can see that they have the potential to take another step forward if they keep growing.
Yeah, growth is key. I would definitely agree with the sentiment there. They're in a great spot. They really only can get better as they get healthier, as they potentially add some key players. So that to me will be key going forward. And I also think Vincent Kompany can only get better and grow as a manager. We saw him take Burnley from the championship to the Premier League. Huge learning experience doing that. Prior to that, we know he was a huge key center back on a lot of great teams for country and for uh, teams across Europe. So experience doing that. And then you get experience in failure when you go down from the Premier League back to the championship. So to me, he's only gained a ton of experience now winning a huge trophy in the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. Can only really go up from here, in my opinion. I think he's going to develop a lot of great things as I'm distracted by a big, big, beautiful Blue Jay outside. But yeah, Vincent Company can only get better. And I think that's a great thing for Bayern.
Yeah, I mean, on Company, I think he did pretty much as well as he could have done this season, given where he is as a coach in his coaching career, given where Bayern was. I mean, really, we're looking at a fractured locker room, guys who have really just fractured relationships with the club. Guys like Kimmich, Goretzka, all these guys that Tuchel really alienated. Vincent Kompany came in and handled the pressure of FC Hollywood, the pressure of being in a locker room with guys who have egos, maybe rightfully so because they've won so much. Like it's not easy to be a young coach and to come in and everybody wants playing time and a team like Bayern is so talented that and so deep that you can't really give everybody playing time. So, company came in, like I said, steadied the ship. And that's a huge credit to him. It's a huge credit to him for being consistent all season long. Now, obviously, he has some faults. I think his lack of rotation really killed him at times, that being the big thing. But I think now going into next season, I'm going to be looking for him to continue to grow, which, like you said, is definitely a possibility, a strong possibility. Coming from Burnley, one of the things you heard about him was he only had a plan A. He didn't, have a plan B and he couldn't kind of make adjustments. So, we go into next season, and in my opinion, the stakes are a little bit higher, and my expectations, my personal expectations for company are a little bit higher. So we'll see if he can kind of raise the level from here.
as they should be. Expectations should be sky high at this point next year for Bayern.
Yeah, agreed. So I think with that, why don't we talk a little bit now about Chelsea, and I'll let you kind of take the reins because Chelsea is in a mighty important and exciting time in their season, and maybe next episode you'll see me rocking a Chelsea kit back there.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have insane directions I want to go, but just want to preview the match against Nottingham Forest. As you mentioned, Sunday, every Premier League team will play their final match at 10 a.m. Central Time. They all start at the same time. They'll all finish within 10, 15 minutes, depending on extra time. But it's going to be a very intense day. There's certain things that are settled. You have the top settled, top two, Liverpool and Arsenal. There's no changing that. In my opinion, three is probably settled with City winning just yesterday against Bournemouth. And now they're 2 points ahead of the next, and they play Fulham, I think. So really just need a draw to lock in the third position. The relegated teams are also settled, so you have all promoted teams going right back down. One of the worst years, I think, really, in terms of promotion teams. Southampton was pretty close to being the all-time lowest point total, so putrid from those three. But Ipswich, Leicester, Southampton will be going down. But then everything in the rest can change, anywhere from, as we have a beautiful Oriole now outside.
What kind of
Just
bird feeders
just
are you?
unreal.
What kind of
Just
bird
unreal.
feeders are you rocking out there? Because
Well, it's
well,
it's my
Oreos like oranges, so I'm sure you got some oranges out
I'm at
there.
my parents' house, yeah, for those watching, and no oranges, but that Oriole, man, so bright and orange. Must be in honor of the Orioles beating the Brewers today. But as I was saying, 17 through 4 is technically all subject to change. I think nothing was locked in as I was looking at the list except maybe 12th Crystal Palace, I believe, couldn't go up or down. But everybody else could change. And, 17 through 7, basically 8, I guess, doesn't matter, but could change. We really want to focus on 4 through 7, those European spots. So we have Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, all locked and loaded at 66 points. That's the order of goal differential. Newcastle up 2 on Chelsea, I believe. Chelsea up by a pretty wide margin on Villa. Then you have Forest in the 7 hole, where they're kind of desperate at this point, would need a lot of help, but you never know. Things can still happen for them. So it's going to be massive. That kind of was a long-winded way of just saying that Sunday should be a phenomenal finish if you're a neutral.
No, yeah, I love it. It's gonna be awesome. The goal differential thing is interesting to me because yeah, Chelsea. I mean, really, right now, Chelsea, if they beat Forest, they're in. They're in Champions League. That's all they got to do. Win and you're in. The simplest path possible. Um, but if they don't win and the waters get a little murky, I mean, if they draw Forest, obviously they'll still be ahead of Forest. But you're looking at Villa and Newcastle. And the goal differential situation between Chelsea and Newcastle could even end up as a dead even, but yeah, it's going to be sweet. Do you have any keys to this Chelsea Forest match? Are there any things you're going to be looking for in terms of players or tactics or just anything like that?
Yeah, so great question. The first thing I was hoping to talk through here with you is the lineup. So I posted a TikTok last night and a short as well, if you're on YouTube, but got a little bit of some feedback from fans actually on TikTok talking through the lineup. I kind of presented the United lineup that they had last week, where you had Reece James in for Romeo Lavia at that inverted right back spot. And then you had Caicedo, Enzo, Palmer in the midfield, George up top with Neto and Madueke at the wings. And the other change that we discussed was Tosin coming in for Chalaba. So my kind of key things to watch there were, will Tosin get the start again or Chalaba? My personal opinion would be to go with Tosin. He's got more height, leadership against a guy like Chris Wood. And I guess I'll just start there with you instead of going on all these tangents. But thoughts on that specifically. As we go against the Forest team, that counterattacking team, but Chris Wood has been a complete stud this season in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think I would roll with the same lineup that they went with against United with the change of starting Neto at the striker position up top and then having Sancho and Noni be your wings. Nothing against George. I think he could be used as a super sub, but I think that you just have a little bit more experience and a little bit more variety too with the trifecta of Noni, Sancho, and Neto. I think Neto can do some good things at the striker position. But yeah, I think I stick with Tosin, like you said, as the center back there. A little bit, maybe a little bit sturdier. I like what Chalba can do kind of on the ball, but I think Tosin is just a little bit more of a rock back there at center back. And I like Reece James. I like Reece James at right back as well. And I think Mark Cucurella just has been one of your best attacking players, funnily enough, as a left back. And he hasn't been too shabby as a defender lately either. But I think you gotta have him, and then Colwell as the other defender. Um, it's tough because I can see the argument for wanting to play Lavia as well, but that's just what I would do personally.
It's very interesting. I've seen many things. To me, I think you got to play Reese. One interesting argument, and I hate thinking like this, is that Lavia cannot play in the Conference League because he's not part of the squad. So that to me means you basically have to play him as much as you can against Forest. But now here's the dilemma. You could, in my opinion, and the opinion of the guy I follow, you could play all four and then really change your lineup if you wanted to. You could play Reese at right back. You could play Moises and Lavia in your midfield. And then you could have Enzo play in a more central, really far up attacking role. And then you'd either have Palmer in a false nine or on the right wing, depending on how you wanted to play it. I'm not saying that's my choice, but I saw that presented. And to me, it's your best four kind of midfield guys then on the pitch. And so I kind of look at that and think, okay, you haven't done it this year, but that's interesting because you always want your best players out there, right? Would that maybe mess with things a little too much? I don't know, but to me that's intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an option. You could even change from like something that isn't a 4-2-3-1, but I'm I would proceed with caution, I think, just overall. I think at this point for this important of a match, I don't know if you risk changing things too much. I think really, obviously, like Lavia was hurt for a while, so it's not like you can build up chemistry anyways, but I think you have to kind of stick with what you had. I'm not even saying it worked that well against United. You got the win, which is the main thing, but um, I see the mindset behind that, having your best players on the field. I wouldn't do it. I think I would just stick with what I said, same United again, same lineup as you had against United with Neto playing the striker and Noni and Sancho on the wings. Um, I can see the thought process there, but I wouldn't do it personally.
Yeah, fair enough. And you bring up the wings, the attacking options. I would tend to agree. I don't think George did enough to show me that he can be the guy, especially against a tough team like Forest. I liked some things I saw from Pedro Neto at times in the year when Jackson was out and he played up top. I think it's going to be a lot tougher against Forest, but yeah, that's probably your best option with Noni and Sancho. I think you do just have more options now because if you did want to then go with that lineup where Lavia's in, make a sub, push Enzo up, take off Sancho, Neto, or Madueke, move Palmer up to the right or up as a false nine, whatever. But you kind of do have options. I think the reason that it wouldn't worry me too much about changing things is that it's pretty fluid with a lot of those guys anyway, the way they play. It's not like there's a true striker anyway. And Enzo's always up there attacking, Cucurella, whatever. So I think no matter what, they're going to be able to find each other and have a flowing attack. But we'll see. There's again a lot of different ways you can go about it if you're Enzo Maresca.
Yeah, I think I probably have a pretty short leash on Sancho. If I'm going
Agreed.
with the lineup that I suggested, I think I have a short leash on Sancho, and then I yank him and maybe try something like that if it really isn't working off the rip. I think you can kind of tell with Sancho relatively early on, is he going to be creative or is he going to be um, stale in the on the day, you know?
Totally agree that you can tell early on. And if you need to yank him and bring in George or move Noni over to the left, whatever the case may be, could even potentially see Guiu make the bench. I don't think it's gonna happen. He apparently returned to some training. I'd love to see him on the bench just as an option if you really need to bring somebody in and press hard and just give their all. But again, that would be more of a desperation move, I think, if you're down a goal. So kind of hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, we'll see. Isn't I say there's options in terms of how you can do the lineup. Not a lot of options with bringing extra guys on if you do need a goal. So I think you're just really going to need to try to get that early goal if you can.
Yeah, I agree. Are there going to be any of those youngsters, do you think, making the bench at all, or is there not really room for them?
I mean, you'll probably see Achimpong. I think he's been making the bench. But the other guys, no. I mean, they usually haven't been making the Premier League bench. It's mostly been defenders. I mean, you got Gusto, then you got KDH, kind of the only attacking midfielder. And then, Chalobah or Tosin, whoever doesn't start. Um,
Yeah, it looks like Badiashile was on the bench against
Issue.
United as
I
well.
mean, there was two goalkeepers on the bench, I think, against United.
There
So
was, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of tough right now in terms of those options. I don't think Nkunku's back yet. So um, yeah, it'll be very interesting again against a tough Forest team who tends to play well at home. We know Chelsea have had terrible, terrible form away from home. So it's just gonna be a match where you have to just really play well. And I think it's gonna come down to Cole Palmer, honestly. You asked originally about my keys. My biggest key is Cole Palmer playing at his best.
That's really funny because I was going to say I was going to say my only key for this match, just to make a bold hyperbolic statement, is what Cole Palmer shows up. And if it's the one that's good, even if he's, doesn't get on the score sheet, but if he's creating chances, if he's commanding the attention of the defense, if he's, you know, providing for other players, that's good enough, I think. And I think that would be enough for Chelsea to maybe sneak away with the win. Obviously, dependent on a lot of things, but if it's the Cole Palmer that looks a little bit sluggish or just is maybe doubting himself or is just frustrated or whatever and isn't providing, if it's that version, it could be a long day.
Yeah, and he could potentially provide an assist early on, but if Chelsea win, I think it might be because he bags a goal or two. We haven't seen him. He's got one goal in the last 21 matches, I think, something crazy like that. And he's been actually really playing well in terms of playmaking, creation for others, assisting. Hasn't seen it in the numbers necessarily, but it's more just due to other guys missing. Um, so yeah, to me, his true like attacking self when he plays so well is when he's bagging the goals as well. So, but we'll see. He's such a difference maker. Best player really by far out of these two teams.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If he shows up, I don't think Forrest is going to be able to stop him. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at the Chelsea lineup and it's like I feel like Caicedo's going to do well. I feel like he always does well. Um, I feel like James is going to be solid. I feel like he's always solid. But then there's just some more question marks, and it's like with a lot of these other guys, I think Neto, Noni, Sancho, um, you know, But even like an Enzo Fernandez, when Enzo Fernandez shows up, he usually shows up in a big way. When Cucurella shows up, he usually shows up in a big way. And then those other attacking players I listed, every one of those guys can just pop off every once in a while, and like that might be enough. But when none of them show up, it's tough, and it gets frustrating, and it doesn't feel like Chelsea has any shot to score at all.
And that's the tough part is, Caicedo shows up every week, but you're right. None of these other guys consistently do. But here's the thing. Enzo is due. Noni is due. Neto, I would say, is due. So how long can you go without providing some sort of big pop? And I think we're bound to see at least one or two of these guys provide something, whether it's a key pass, even a defensive stop. I will say that the consistency has been at that back line. I do think it's been pretty strong. Colwell has really showed up in the second half of this year, which is impressive considering he does not have a consistent mate next to him. So I'm not that worried defensively, except for the man in goal. We never know what can happen there, but yeah, it really comes down to what guys show up.
That's really funny because I was thinking the same thing, and it's weird because earlier in the season, for most of the season, I would have said Chelsea's back line is a huge problem and their lack of consistency is a huge problem. But yeah, lately they've all put up solid performances. Even Sanchez has been solid as of late. Now, he's always liable to make a mistake, so I'm not gonna um, hang my hat on the notion that Sanchez will be rock solid all day, but um, he's been solid lately. And I guess the other thing to talk about or to mention, because we haven't talked about it at all, does Enzo Maresca have what it takes to fire up these guys? Does he have the right game plan for Forest? I feel like, I obviously don't watch the Premier League a lot, but I feel like Forest is just like a solid team, maybe not a ton of firepower as, compared to some of the other top teams in the Premier League, but they're just solid. Um, yeah, does Enzo have what it takes to light a fire under these guys' asses and get them across the finish line?
I think he does, to answer your question in a short manner, because the dip they had, they've been able to bounce back nicely from and put themselves in a position to win and get into Champions League. The other answer is that he doesn't need to fire him up. If you can't get yourself fired up in match day 38 when you need to win, you're not a player I want on my squad, to be completely honest with you. So if there's players that aren't fired up, then I want to sell them all next year. And that's just I got to be blunt because that's the way it is. It's the last freaking game of the year, and you need to show up and show up in a big way. So that's definitely part of it. And then tactically, my other key is that Forest have to win this match. And even if they win, they might not get Champions League, but they have to win this match. Technically, Chelsea could draw, lose, get in, whatever. Forest have to win. They're a counterattacking team. Tactically, what are they going to do? Are they going to change things up? Are they going to try to be defensive and counterattack? That to me is a key to watch. And we'll see if Enzo's able to quickly identify what Forest is doing, because I think that's going to be massive if he needs to adapt quickly or push on with whatever plan he chooses.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too. I don't think or I guess I should say, I don't know what Forest will be like in a must win scenario. Because, like you said, they're yeah counterattacking. Like if Chelsea scores early, I think it might be over for Forest. Um, maybe they claw their way back into a draw, but um, I don't know what this Forest team is going to look like because of the circumstances. I don't feel like I've ever seen them play with so much urgency, like they're really ramping up the attack or anything. So, yeah, why don't we conclude this here? Do you want to give some predictions in terms of score? Do you want to save that for something else, or do you want to go ahead and rattle it off here?
My official prediction is Chelsea 2, Forest nil as of now. That's what I put down, pens to paper, and that's what I'm sticking with. I think Chelsea are going to get an early goal, and that's really going to be the key. And the crowd might die just a little bit. That's the only way I see Chelsea winning is if they get that early goal, and then they grab a second later. Might be a penalty, Forest panicking a little bit, but I'm feeling the vibes right now for Chelsea. I think it's going to be a huge win, going to push them into the Conference League final for another huge win. And then we might see a team that achieves rocket ship status into next season. So that's what I got right now. And hopefully nothing brings me down before then.
Awesome. I'm feeling good vibes for Chelsea as well. I'm going 2-1 Chelsea. I think we're going to see that early goal as well. And by early, I guess I just mean first half, but maybe like 20th, 30th minute if I had to say. Um, I'll go 20th minute. And I think that Chelsea's going to just try to lock down after that and won't try to score again. And I think they will concede. Not right after, but I think eventually they will concede. But I think there's going to be some late fireworks, maybe 80th, 85th minute or so. I think Chelsea's going to bag that winner. And then I think they'll go on to win the Conference League as well. And I'll be eating every bad word I ever said about Enzo against my will.
Would be huge. Would be absolutely huge. And I would love to see it.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to close us off with? I think that was kind of, I feel like we kind of covered a lot of good ground there.
Not much, no. I'll probably, be posting a few more videos as the week goes on TikTok, previewing this match and giving some thoughts. So if you follow us over there, would love to get some more of your input. Some solid discussions have been had so far this week. So let's keep that up.
Awesome. Yeah. So don't forget to check us out on TikTok. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, feel free to comment on the YouTube videos too. I like to have discussions with people, even people who hate me and tell me that Harry Kane is the most disgusting player to ever play the game and our logo is stupid and whatever other comments people say. Most of the comments are nice and we have good discussions, but I get a kick out of some of those and I like to respond to them all. So thanks for being here and thanks for sticking with us.
Respect.
All right, well, I guess we'll get out of here now and I'll send us off. Mia san Mia.
Up the Chelsea.